Amelia Mary Earhart was born on July 24th, 1897 in Atchison, Kansas, to Samuel Edwin Stanton Earhart and Amelia Amy Earhart. She was the couple's second child following a stillbirth in 1896. Amelia had a dominant personality and led her younger sister Grace, nicknamed Pidge. Their unconventional upbringing fostered independence, as their mother believed in raising strong children. Amelia enjoyed outdoor activities and was often described as a tomboy. In 1904, she built a ramp inspired by a roller coaster, leading to her first exhilarating flight experience. After moving to Des Moines, Iowa, she saw her first airplane at the Iowa State Fair, but preferred the merry-go-round. While their parents relocated, Amelia and Grace lived with their grandparents and were homeschooled. In 1909, they began attending public school, with Amelia entering the 7th grade at 12 years old. The family's finances improved initially, but Edwin struggled with alcoholism, leading to his retirement in 1914. Following the death of Amelia's grandmother, a trust was created to safeguard her inheritance. The auction of their home marked the end of Amelia's childhood. In 1915, Edwin found work at the Great Northern Railway, allowing Amelia to enter Central High School, but his employment was short-lived, and the family moved to Chicago. Amelia graduated from Hyde Park High School in 1916. Throughout her childhood, Amelia dreamed of a successful career and kept a scrapbook of women in male-dominated fields. She attended Ogontz School in Pennsylvania for junior college, but did not finish her education. During Christmas vacation in 1917, Amelia visited her sister in Toronto, where she saw wounded soldiers returning from World War I. After training as a nurse's aide with the Red Cross, she worked at Spadina Military Hospital, where stories from military pilots sparked her interest in flying. In 1918, during the Spanish flu pandemic, Earhart contracted the virus and was hospitalized for pneumonia and maxillary sinusitis. After 2 months, she was discharged, but her chronic sinus issues persisted, affecting her later in life. Her recovery lasted nearly a year at her sister's home, where she read poetry, learned to play the banjo, and studied mechanics. By 1919, Earhart intended to enroll at Smith College, but instead joined Columbia University for medical studies, only to leave a year later to be with her reunited parents in California. In the early 1920s, Amelia Earhart and a friend attended an airfair at the Canadian National Exhibition in Toronto, where she developed a keen interest in aviation. One highlight was a flying exhibition by a World War I ace who dived towards them, prompting Earhart to feel a connection to the aircraft. On December 28, 1920, Earhart and her father went to an aerial meet at Doherty Field in Long Beach, California. She asked about passenger flights and flying lessons and booked a flight with Frank Hawks the next day at Emory Rogers Field for $10. That brief flight transformed her life, and she realized by the time I was 200 or 300 feet off the ground, I knew I had to fly. The following month, Earhart hired Netta Snook as her flying instructor under a contract for 12 hours of instruction at $500. To fund her lessons, she worked various jobs and saved $1,000. She began her lessons on January 3, 1921 at Kinnerfield in Southgate, using a restored Curtiss JN-4 Canuck. Earhart had to take a bus and walk 4 miles to reach the airfield, with her mother providing part of her funding despite her reservations. In mid-1921, against Snook's advice, she bought a second-hand yellow Kinner Airster biplane nicknamed the Canary. After her first solo landing, she purchased a new leather flying coat, which she aged to avoid teasing. On October 22, 1922, Earhart set a world record for female pilots by reaching 14,000 feet. On May 16, 1923, she became the 16th woman in the US to earn a pilot's license number 6017 from the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale, FAI. Throughout the early 1920s, Amelia Earhart's inheritance from her grandmother diminished as her mother managed the funds after a disastrous investment in a gypsum mine. With no hope of recovering her investment, Earhart sold her aircraft and purchased a yellow Kissel Gold Bug Speedster, which she named Yellow Peril. During this time, her chronic sinus issues worsened, leading to another unsuccessful operation in early 1924. After her parents' divorce in 1924, Earhart embarked on a transcontinental trip with her mother, ending in Boston, where she had a successful sinus surgery. Though she returned to Columbia University, she had to leave due to financial constraints. In 1925, she worked as a teacher and then as a social worker at Denison House in Boston. While living in Medford, she continued her passion for aviation, joining the American Aeronautical Society's Boston chapter and becoming its vice president. She flew out of Denison Airport, invested in its operation, and in 1927 made the first official flight from the airport. Additionally, she worked as a sales representative for Kinner Aircraft and wrote local newspaper columns to promote flying, planning to start an organisation for female flyers. In 1928, Amelia Earhart became the first woman to cross the Atlantic Ocean in an airplane. Coordinated by George P. Putnam, who later became her husband, Earhart was a passenger on the flight piloted by Wilma Stultz with Louis Gordon as co-pilot. They departed from Trepassey Harbour, Newfoundland on June 17th and landed in PWL, South Wales, 20 hours and 40 minutes later, a duration that inspired the title of her book, 20 Hours, Sassy Bun. Although she did not pilot the plane or have training in that type of aircraft, Earhart gained international attention and was celebrated as a heroine. After flying to Woolston, England, she received a warm welcome and later acquired an Avro Avian aircraft owned by Lady Mary Heath, an important figure in aviation. Upon returning to the United States on July 6th, Earhart, Stultz and Gordon were honoured with a ticker tape parade in Manhattan and received by President Calvin Coolidge at the White House. As she gained fame, the press dubbed her Lady Lindy and Queen of the Air. Putnam promoted Earhart heavily, leading to a successful lecture tour and product endorsements, including for Lucky Strike cigarettes. This marketing effort established Earhart's public image and helped finance her flying pursuits, as she became a prominent figure in women's fashion with her active living clothing lines. Amelia Earhart married her public relations manager, George P. Putnam, on February 7th, 1931, at his mother's house in Noank, Connecticut, often viewed as a marriage of convenience. Prior to this, she had broken off her engagement to chemical engineer Samuel Chapman in 1928. Putnam, also known as GP, proposed to Earhart 6 times before she accepted. Earhart considered their marriage a partnership with dual control. In a letter she delivered on their wedding day, she wrote, "I want you to understand I shall not hold you to any medieval code of faithfulness to me, nor shall I consider myself bound to you similarly. I may have to keep some place where I can go to be by myself from time to time." Progressive for her era, Earhart believed in equal responsibilities in a marriage and chose to keep her name rather than becoming Mrs. Putnam. They did not have children, but Putnam had 2 sons from a previous marriage. On May 20th, 1932, 34-year-old Earhart began her historic solo flight from Harbour Grace, Newfoundland, aiming to fly to Paris in her Lockheed Vega 5B. With the assistance of Norwegian-American aviator Bernt Balchen, she prepared for the flight. After nearly 15 hours in the air, contending with various challenges, Earhart landed in a pasture at Culmore, Northern Ireland. When asked if she had flown far, she replied, "From America." As the first woman to fly solo non-stop across the Atlantic, Earhart received numerous accolades, including the Distinguished Flying Cross from Congress. Her fame led to friendships with influential figures like First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. Though they shared many interests, including women's causes, Roosevelt did not pursue flying further after training with Earhart. On January 11, 1935, Amelia Earhart became the first aviator to fly solo from Honolulu, Hawaii to Oakland, California in a Lockheed 5C Vega. While many had attempted this flight before, including those in the 1927 Dole Air Race, Earhart's journey was smooth, with no mechanical issues. During her flight, she relaxed and listened to a broadcast of the Metropolitan Opera. On April 19, 1935, Earhart flew solo from Los Angeles to Mexico City in her Lockheed Vega, affectionately named Old Bessie the Firehorse. She then attempted a non-stop flight from Mexico City to New York, which was uneventful, although she had to navigate carefully through large crowds upon landing in Newark. Earhart also competed in the 1935 Bendix Trophy long-distance air race, finishing 5th. Her stock Lockheed Vega, with a maximum speed of 195 miles per hour, was outmatched by faster aircraft. The race was challenging due to the tragic death of a competitor at takeoff and severe weather conditions. Between 1930 and 1935, Earhart set 7 women's speed and distance records in various aircraft. But by 1935, recognizing the limitations of her Lockheed Vega for long transoceanic flights, she began planning an ambitious circumnavigation of the globe and realized she would need a new aircraft for this endeavor. In late November 1934, while Amelia Earhart was on a speaking tour, a fire at the Putnam residence in Rye destroyed many of her personal mementos. Following this, the couple moved to the West Coast, where Putnam became head of the editorial board of Paramount Pictures in North Hollywood. In June 1935, at Earhart's urging, Putnam bought a small house in Toluca Lake, a celebrity enclave in the San Fernando Valley. Later that year, Earhart and Paul Mantz established the short-lived Earhart-Mantz Flying School, which Mantz operated through his company, United Air Services, at Burbank Airport. Putnam managed the school's publicity. Additionally, Earhart joined Purdue University as a visiting faculty member, advising women on careers and serving as a technical advisor to the Department of Aeronautics. In early 1936, Amelia Earhart began planning a historic flight around the world, aiming to become the first woman to do so. Her journey would cover approximately 29,000 miles, 47,000 kilometers, along an equatorial route. To support her efforts, Purdue University established the Amelia Earhart Fund for Aeronautical Research, contributing $50,000 for a Lockheed Electra 10E, which she referred to as her flying laboratory. Earhart initially chose Harry Manning as her navigator, but after he made a minor navigational error during a test flight, she decided to enlist Fred Noonan as a second navigator, due to his extensive experience in both marine and flight navigation. Noonan had recently left Pan American World Airways, where he played a key role in establishing seaplane routes across the Pacific. The flight plan included Noonan navigating from Hawaii to Howland Island, a challenging segment, after which Manning would join Earhart to Australia. She would then continue the journey alone. On March 17, 1937, Amelia Earhart and her crew began the first leg of her round-the-world flight, travelling from Oakland, California to Honolulu, Hawaii. However, they had to abandon the attempt after a non-fatal crash due to problems with the aircraft's propeller mechanisms. The plane was taken to Luke Field at Pearl Harbor for repairs, but crashed during takeoff, leading to significant damage. After securing additional funding, Earhart and her husband, George Putnam, prepared for a second attempt, this time flying west to east. They started with an unannounced flight from Oakland to Miami, where Earhart announced her plans to circumnavigate the globe. With radio operator Richard Manning no longer part of the crew, Earhart and navigator Fred Noonan departed Miami on June 1, 1937. They made several stops before reaching Lae, New Guinea on June 29th, having completed 22,000 miles of their journey with 7,000 miles left over the Pacific. On July 2, 1937 at 10 a.m. local time, Amelia Earhart and her navigator Fred Noonan took off from Lae Airfield in their loaded Electra aircraft, aiming for Howland Island, which was 2,556 miles away. The flight was expected to last about 20 hours. With the 2-hour time zone difference, they anticipated arriving on July 3rd. The aircraft was filled with approximately 1,100 US gallons of gasoline. The US Coast Guard sent the cutter USCG-C Itasca to Howland to provide communication support. The cutter was to transmit a homing signal and use radio direction finding to help guide Earhart. Unfortunately, these methods failed to locate the island. Around 3 p.m. laytime, Earhart reported her altitude at 10,000 feet, later lowering it to 7,000 feet at 5 p.m. while flying at 150 knots. As they approached Howland, clear transmissions from Earhart identified her as KHAQQ, but she couldn't hear the cutter's responses. Earhart's routine weather reports received at 2:45 a.m. and just before 5 a.m. indicated cloudy conditions and that they were far from Howland. At 6:14 a.m. she reported being within 200 miles of the island and requested a directional bearing. She began whistling into the microphone for a continuous signal. However, Itasca's RDF system failed to pick up her signal. A later call at 6:45 a.m. estimated them to be 100 miles away. An Itasca radio log from 7:30 to 7:40 a.m. indicated that the aircraft had only half an hour of fuel left. The crew believed they were near Itasca but could not locate it while flying at 1,000 feet. At 7:58 a.m. Earhart reported that she could not hear Itasca and requested voice signals for a radio bearing. Itasca transmitted the loudest possible signal indicating Earhart and Noonan were nearby but could only send Morse code. Earhart acknowledged the signals but could not determine their direction. Earhart's last transmission indicated that she and Noonan were following a north-south line of position on bearings of 157 to 337 degrees, which Noonan had plotted. After losing contact, attempts were made to reach them, but signals from the Electra were weak or unintelligible. Misunderstandings, errors, or mechanical failures likely affected the final approach to Howland. Noonan had noted issues with radio direction finding accuracy. Additionally, Earhart and Itasca used different time systems for their communication schedule, leading to confusion. Earhart was unfamiliar with her recently installed RDF system, which she had only briefly trained on, and the band settings were not visible. The Electra needed signals from Itasca as an RDF beacon, but despite hearing Itasca's transmission on 7,500 kHz, Earhart could not determine its direction. She also encountered difficulties during an RDF test at Ley. The plane was lost. About an hour after Earhart's last message, the Itasca began an unsuccessful search to the north and west of Howland Island. The US Navy joined the search, which lasted until July 19, 1937, costing $4 million, around $87 million today. Despite intensive efforts, no evidence of Earhart, Noonan or the Electra was found. On July 3rd and July 6th, 1937, an amateur radio operator in Oakland reportedly heard emergency transmissions from Earhart. However, many subsequent reports were determined to be hoaxes. The captain of the USS Colorado noted that numerous stations were trying to contact the Earhart plane, adding to the confusion regarding the authenticity of the transmissions. After the official search for Amelia Earhart ended, her husband financed a private search conducted by local authorities in nearby Pacific Islands. In late July 1937, he chartered 2 small boats to explore additional islands while he remained in the United States. He also became the trustee of Earhart's estate to cover the search costs and requested a waiver of the 7-year waiting period to declare her legally dead, which occurred on January 5, 1939. In 2003 and 2006, David Jordan, through his company Nauticos, searched a 1,200 square mile area north and west of Howland Island with deep-sea sonar devices at a cost of $4.5 million, but no wreckage was found. In 2024, Deep Sea Vision claimed to have located what could be Earhart's airplane on the ocean floor, but it was later identified as a rock formation. The US government investigated Amelia Earhart's aircraft disappearance and concluded that her plane ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean. In the 1970s, retired US Navy Captain Lawrence Safford analysed the flight and determined it suffered from poor planning and execution. Many researchers believe that Earhart and her navigator, Fred Noonan, died during or shortly after the crash. In 1982, retired US Navy Rear Admiral Richard R. Black stated, "The Electra went into the sea about 10 a.m. on July 2nd, 1937, not far from Howland." Earhart's stepson, George Palmer Putnam Jr., suggested that the plane simply ran out of gas. Biographer Susan Butler noted that the aircraft likely rests on the ocean floor at a depth of 17,000 feet, while Tom D. Crouch from the National Air and Space Museum has called its archaeological significance comparable to that of the RMS Titanic. British historian Roy Nesbitt concluded that Earhart's Electra may not have been fully fuelled when it left Leigh. Navigator William L. Polymus, studying Noonan's strategy, suggested he might have miscalculated the approach to Howland. Most historians believe Earhart crashed in the Pacific Ocean, but several theories exist. The Gardner Island hypothesis suggests she and Noonan became lost and may have landed on Nikumaroro, yet no evidence has been found linking them to the island. The Japanese capture theory posits they were captured by Japanese forces, an idea supported by some of Earhart's relatives. Another theory suggests she turned back to reach Rabaul in New Britain, where a veteran claimed to have seen a wrecked aircraft in 1945, but searches yielded no evidence. In 1965, Joseph Gervais spoke at a gathering of retired pilots, where he met Mrs. Irene Craigmile Bolam through Amelia Earhart's friend Viola Gentry. Believing Bolam was Earhart, Gervais researched her background and published his findings. Bolam denied the claim, filed a lawsuit and provided an affidavit with evidence, including her 1937 private pilot's license and marriage certificate. After her death, Gervais sought permission to photograph and fingerprint her body, but it was denied. 3 more books suggested Bolam was Earhart: Stand By to Die, 1985, by Robert Myers and Barbara Wiley. Amelia Earhart Survived, 2003, by Colonel Rollin C. Reineck and Amelia Earhart. Beyond the Grave, 2016, by W. C. Jameson. Additionally, a 2006 episode of Undiscovered History proposed that Earhart survived, changed her name to Irene Craigmile Bolam. Amelia Earhart was a significant figure who championed women's rights and became a global cultural icon after her disappearance. US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton noted her lasting influence, stating, "Earhart created a legacy that resonates today for anyone, girls and boys, who dream of the stars." In 2013, Flying Magazine ranked her 9th among the 51 heroes of aviation. Earhart's charisma and courage made her a feminist icon. Her birthplace is now the Amelia Earhart Birthplace Museum, operated by the 99s, an organisation of female pilots. Numerous tributes honour her legacy. In 1967, Anne Pellegrino followed Earhart's flight plan for a round-the-world journey, commemorating her with a wreath drop over Howland Island. Linda Finch retraced Earhart's final flight path in 1997, and Carlini Mendieta flew an original Avro Avian in 2001 to commemorate her transcontinental flight. Structures named in her honour include the USNS Amelia Earhart, Purdue University's Earhart Hall, the Amelia Earhart Airport in Atchison, Kansas, and the Amelia Earhart Dam in Massachusetts. A US Postal Service stamp was issued in 1963, and she was inducted into the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America in 1992. The Amelia Earhart Fellowship, established by Zonta International in 1938, awards $10,000 annually to support women pursuing PhD degrees in aerospace engineering and space sciences, granting 1,764 fellowships to women from 79 countries. As a pioneering figure in aviation and a symbol of courage and independence, Amelia Earhart's legacy continues to loom large in popular culture. Her story has inspired countless books, films and documentaries, exploring not only her remarkable achievements, but also the enduring mysteries surrounding her final voyage. Earhart's life serves as a testament to the spirit of adventure and the quest for achievement against all odds, leaving an indelible mark on history and the world of aviation.